Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Monday, April 20th, 2026 Seaford Board of Education meeting. My name is Kim Hopkins, and I will be presiding. I'm calling this meeting to order at 6 p.m. The next item on our agenda is approval of the agenda as presented.
Sarah Savage, I need to approve the agenda as presented.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. The next item on our agenda is pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing and silent. The next item on our agenda is approval of the March 23rd, 2026 board meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve, the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. The next item, for part of public participation, we do not have any. The next item will be reports and presentations, with the first being from our superintendent.
Yes, superintendent's communication. I paused it for a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody here and hopefully our viewers in public. I hope everyone had a lovely spring break. I'm not sure, there's a freeze warning tonight, so I think we had fall, summer, and now we're gonna go back into spring, but it's all good, it's coming. At the end of spring break, I had the privilege of attending the National School Board Association conference with the Seaford Board of Education. And we had also the honor of presenting on the Saturday. And I would just like to publicly and formally thank you guys and give ourselves a collective pat on the back because we had about 50 people at our presentation. And I jokingly said the best part was that as we started talking, nobody left. Nobody left. And they actually came up and talked to us afterwards. And we have some contacts and some folks that we're going to follow up with. One gentleman in particular from New Jersey, a younger man, who I think would really benefit from that mentoring, and maybe he's out there watching today. I don't know. Beyond that, we have entered state testing season with some pep rallies and kickoffs at various buildings. So kids are getting down to work and they're going to show everything they've learned. And finally, from Mrs. Lovely, I asked the principals cabinet last week for our principals to share anything that they, celebrations or events. And she said, not sure this is something you want to share, but on Tuesday, April 14th at Fred, we had an event called Cuts for Kids. 9 local barbers and hairstylists volunteered their time and services for our students. Over 45 students got hair salon services, anything from a wash, spruce up, braids and more braids, fades, a little bit of everything. So I was really happy that she shared that. And that's just the kind of commitment and interactivity we see with community and our schools for the benefit of our students. And so of course I replied, this is lovely. This is exactly the sort of thing I care of all of you. Yep. So beyond that, happy spring.
Happy spring. All right, so the next item on our agenda will be the board communication. And kind of piggybacking off of what you said, we did go out there and we presented, and so we're trying to figure out what to present next year, because now this was so inspired that she wants to, do session
It's a
discussion.
good exercise, it really
It
was.
was.
And then hopefully next year we're not put up against Q.
Cube, a big luncheon,
It was a lunch,
right?
it was a luncheon,
Yeah.
Luncheon.
We'd have had 150.
But yeah, and I gotta give kudos to to Dara, because listen, she would put in our section,
Everywhere.
the wall.
Do you have something planned for that?
Yeah.
Presenting at 12:45.
Exactly. I mean, the day before, literally, we're in the exhibit hallway, and she's just stopping, pulling people, and we're making connections the funny thing is we're making connections with people from other states, which Dara happened to go to school with
Yes.
some people that they were related to. It was just wild, but just definitely trying to get the word out there and let them know to come, to our session, because sometimes you can kind of get in like a silo where we all work together so well, but then when you're looking across the nation or you're looking across the state, a lot of superintendents and their school boards don't get along that well.
No.
And I had asked, I don't remember who it was, they kind of laughed, they did laugh, they laughed at. Because I was questioning, like, how is it possible that boards and their superintendents don't mesh well when the board actually hires the superintendent? So it just becomes very interesting to me, and they're just like, well, some people are not who they seem. So then they start, having their issues. But just like, Dr. D said, there was a young guy out of Jersey that, matter of fact, the next day he stopped us in the hall, and it got to the point that so many people were talking to us that Dr. D had to say, well, the exhibit hall closes in 30 minutes. But they definitely were inspiring, no matter the age. We had an older gentleman also asking numerous questions at the end as well. I want to know how did we learn about governance and different things like that. So it was quite impressive. The experience, definitely want to think about what we can get into next year to try to help with those gaps. It was also good to see some of the school districts there this year that typically are not there, like Lake Forest, I believe was there, and someone else was there.
Red Clay.
Oh, and Woodbridge
Woodbridge.
was there. And so we typically don't see Woodbridge or Lake, so that was really good. I typically go to like the mental health sessions because that is so much going on, and it's not new. I think that for the stigma there still this was not as bad as it was, so you hear a lot more about it. But this one presentation I went to was talking about 80% like parents, when you look at the children, are getting their resources from the school. And when I'm listening to that, as if we didn't already realize and recognize that, almost to me, I use the word that we have become like the state service center. When you're thinking about looking at the dental needs, looking at their hunger needs, looking at their mental health needs, looking at their psychosocial, needs. But at the same time, the schoolhouse is supposed to be needed to educate. So where does education fall into that when you're looking at all the other needs that you look at Madison, you would hope would be the foundation prior to even getting into the schoolhouse. So it's just a lot of stuff to unpack, and also recognizing that a lot of, again, places across the nation also struggle with the same thing. How did the teachers with 30 students in their class continue to check on this, these two students simultaneously, because they're the ones that have more behaviors, but also making sure that the people that aren't having these issues are still engaged and getting what they need from it. How does that work? And then looking at the burnout from, educators and how many have left the profession, it almost, it kind of mirrors how many nurses have left the profession, and more people are leaving than you can get people in. So what does that then look like down the road? So really good sessions. They have tons of concurrent sessions that you can choose from. But definitely was great. And then next year they're going to be in DC. So we'll load up in.
Little bit, no.
We'll load up in.
No.
So, but yeah, it definitely was great. Does anyone else have anything?
One of the things I noticed was 14 guest speakers in the breakout session that they had, you can go to all the time, and 90% of that was about vocational stuff. All the manufacturers are still talking about still getting people that can turn a wrench, and that was interesting to me. And I know we always go in a lot of different directions, but everybody just can't find anything anymore. It's getting to be a big thing, and
There's a huge shortfall.
yes, and even financially, they're that you're saying the guy doing labor work's making more than somebody else that's got a doctor's degree or something, you know what I mean, just because they don't need that person doing that job. And, it was interesting that one after another would come up and talk about that. The other thing was, it was a little embarrassing for me because the school set me up. They had a picture of all our board members now. And everybody else was in color and mine was in black and white. And they had to get started, you know, always want to start with a joke. Dr. D was able to use that. They used to say he was a little gobbler on the end.
In our defense, they were yearbook pictures. It wasn't anything more than that.
So when the guys came up to me, said, not only were you the older guy, I didn't realize you were Latino. I said, I didn't either, but, okay. It was a great time.
Pretty good. Dara and I were able, Dara was probably like, oh my God, I never sit by her again. But I was like, Dara, one of the sessions we went to, they were giving out, Swedish fish. And I said, Dara, I said, I really want some candy. I said, we gotta participate so we get this Swedish fish. So we had to, go in front of everybody and do the, and present, in that session. But the thing was, they were talking about what, as far as like, what do we believe that a graduate should have? And it's so interesting because coming from the college, teaching and being an educator, at 3 different colleges, we have advisory boards. And I don't mean that we have advisory boards with parents. Like we always talk about, oh, are there any parents on there? How about are there teachers on there? When we're looking at an advisory board, we're actually looking at the people that we're trying to get these kids prepared for.
Yeah.
Who are your employers? Who are the heads of your colleges and the different departments that children seem interested in? Would these kids, if they had to do an interview, actually be able to get into some of these programs? So that's something that I'm thinking about in my head, like how does that work? How do we measure, or how do we know that we're meeting the need or the mission of what Delaware needs as far as who we are graduating? And are they ready for entry level to either work? Are they ready to pass a placement test? Are they ready to, as you said, turn a wrench? Could they be an apprentice?
Right.
And a lot of people were talking about critical thinking skills, professionalism and all those things. And do these kids have that? And so it really makes you gotta, sit back and be very reflective of, are we putting out what society needs? Are we graduating students that will meet the needs of our state?
Yeah.
So those are things that we can ponder over as we go into this next year. Fellow colleagues, don't forget, check your email if you have not, because Ms. Karen has sent you the board evaluation. Okay. All right, so the next thing, Ms. Karen, that will be you. JICIR, weapons and school
Okay,
regulations.
so just updating this regulation to go along with the policy that I think was set reading this tonight. Not huge changes, added some things, like if you go to number 6, under A, the safe school zone idea is just any school, any property owned by us or anything that we're renting out for any kind of events, all counts as a safe school zone. And then just some other small changes based on current, federal law requiring the school. And then struck a few places that had other board policies mentioned in them just because if they changed, they want to change. Nothing substantially.
The next one being your JIJR, the protest demonstration and strike regulations.
The same thing, just updated a little bit, changed a few things, got rid of things that just were kind of outdated. And then after the event, something we talked about obviously a few months ago with the event that happened at the high school with the ice protest, that students will be assigned consequences based on the code of conduct and other.
And then when we're looking at JLCCR, it looks like it's to be deleted.
Yeah, so this, again, I apologize for this one, because when we updated this policy, I just spaced on the regulation. Regulation, much like the policy, if you remember, was very heavily reliant on HIV and AIDS, which when it was made in the 80s made sense, but now does not make sense anymore. So because the policy is pretty robust in what we do, I'm just gonna strike this regulation and take it out of.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Roll? All right. Next one is 6.07, and we have GBEER, Internet and Electronic Communications, Staff Regulation, and that is Mr. Cameron.
So things, we took a look at, we were looking at the second reading of the, policy, but we looked at the regulation. And we set out a policy committee, looked at it, and a lot of it is about being a good online citizen as an employee. And understanding that things that you post on social media can have the same effect as if you're saying them or doing that. So we make that clear in the policy. Another piece of this is the relationship that employees, staff should have with students in regards to social media. One of the things is that there is no reason that text communication should take place between staff and students. And the question came up about coaches. A lot of coaches may have a group text like, hey, practice has moved, or hey, right. So Mr. Evans is working on a universal app that we can use through athletics. We also have our Schoology system, and I think even our new website, Ms. Brady might know, Skillshare might have something that we can use as well.
It does.
So we might have some things in place. We're also gonna look at, I think one's called Rained Out and some different ones. But the idea there is that if you're an athlete that plays football, basketball, baseball, we would have the same way to communicate for each one. So it's not like, well, in football we use this, and in basketball we use this. So Mr. Evans is working on that, and we'll have something in place for that for the fall.
Doesn't BIAA recommend, is it Dragonfly or?
Well, there is Dragonfly, but Dragonfly is going away beginning June 1 with a new, I'm trying to think of we just had a meeting on today.
Rank one.
Rank 1 is,
Okay.
everything that's a Dragonfly is gonna go to rank 1.
Okay.
So we're kind of learning that, but we'll have something.
Yeah, but
in order
for
to
sure
be able
we'll
to
do it.
Okay,
We
yeah.
will. Yeah.
So that's the big subset of changes in this regulation.
Yeah, other districts, excuse me, move to do the same, things, some have like their own special apps or messaging devices or reminds and things like that, so I definitely get it. The next one is, GBEGR staff attendance regulation.
Hold on. No. There we go. So really, this is just a review of the attendance policy. They were asking for a review of the policy, and it's just in the process of us going through in the section of personnel where we are in policy review. This one was implemented, I believe, back in 16 originally, so it's one of our younger policies. So it really didn't need any updating, same as the policy we're gonna look at later this evening. Or that would, I'm sorry, this should have been policy first,
first.
for the review, and then the regulation the same way. Both are no update needed at this time. Just review so that we have that marked for the next time somebody comes around with this policy review.
Right. Start back at the beginning. Just a guesstimate, how many more do you have?
You really don't want to
I
know.
really don't want to know.
We're
We-
about,
Still have.
we're about to start fine.
Yeah, so when, a few meetings ago, I think you asked a question along where were we? And I think at that point, I went to Dr. Jerome, I think at that, somewhere around that point, we had touched around 130 policies, regulations, something that had taken place in there, and I would say, yeah, we're not.
And remember, we started them like right after I got on the board.
Yes.
So that's how long we've been doing it.
It was like 800 and some individual policies or regs, because I remember I had it in a spreadsheet.
Yes.
And
So I would say we're probably getting close to being a quarter of the way through.
I think a lot of it is because of the first and the second readings and all that.
It's a little of that, and I wanna say there's no rhyme nor I mean, we're kind of attacking them as some come up, so as we had a plan of what we go through, we had to put some of them aside to address some that needed it, and then, of course, some model policies come down from the state that we've got it. In fact, that's when you're gonna see in May around the cell phones, that, SB 160 passed and says you'll have a cell phone policy in place, with certain things. DOE gave us model policy. We're working on what that looks like, that was not necessarily on the agenda, so it's some things like that, but we're trudging through.
You can't have him in Title IX.
Oh, so it's
Change
not-
it.
that's
Change
not-
it back, and then the people change it again, and you get, yeah. All right, any questions for Mr. Cameron? Okay, all right, we'll move along, we're going to go into our, action items. The first one being school toys, you have identified here, of course, you cannot mention any names. Dr. Benson, did you listen? We do listen, this is his favorite part of the meeting, so I just need a motion to approve.
Chair Savage, I move to approve application 2027-36 through 2027-41 and deny 2027-42.
Mark, sorry, that's something.
All right, we have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions or refusals? And that motion will carry. We do not have any field trips. The next one that we have is our facility request. We do have, one, it is the Delaware Gospel Assembly Incorporated. Reverend Leslie, Marceline, and the dates are June 25th, 26th, and 27th. You will see that all 3 days they're looking to use the auditorium. And then on a couple of days, they're also use the, cafeteria lobby gym area. And, looks like it might be approximately 1,000, people participating in this. And, so we will just need a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the use of the facilities.
Mark, sorry, that's something.
All right, so the motion in a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And this motion will carry. The next item on our agenda is your ABC, accomplishments reporting to the public policy. I just will need a motion, to approve either the second reading.
It's the second reading. Chair Savage, I move to approve second reading of AEC accomplishments reporting to the public body.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion, have a second. If there's no further questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion will carry. Then we have DC professional staff policy. This too is a, second reading. If there's no questions, for Mr. Cameron, we need a motion to approve.
Mark, sorry, I move to approve the second reading of GC professional staff policy as presented.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion will also carry. Now we have GBEE, Internet and Electronic Communications, staff policy. This is more of a second reading, as presented by Mr. Cameron. If there's any questions for him, we just need a motion to approve.
Chair Savage, I move to approve GBEE Internet and Electronic Communications Policy for the second reading.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion also will carry. The next item, being your GBEB, tobacco-free workplace / staff no smoking / smoking policy. This too is a second reading. If there's no question from Mr. Cameron, we would need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve GBED, tobacco-free workplace and staff policy.
Chair Savage, I second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion will also carry. Mr. Cameron, you're on roll. Next one, JICI, weapons and school policy. This too is a second reading. If there's no questions for Mr. Cameron, we need a motion to approve.
Mark, sorry, I move to approve the second reading of JICI weapons and school policy as presented.
Second.
All right, there's a motion, we have a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion will carry. Now we have our JIJ, student protest, demonstrations, and strikes policy, also presented by, Cameron. If there's no questions for him, then we need a motion to approve.
Chair Savage, I move to approve the second reading of JIJ student protest policy as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion will carry. Now we come to Mr. Henry. We have the Central Elementary School Building Assessment Report.
All right, guys, it's that time of year, I'm bringing you the first of two assessments, that we'll be doing throughout this year. I'm here tonight for the fiscal year 2026 facility assessments to allow, them to be approved and submitted to DOE and ONB per Senate Bill 270. Tonight's assessment package is one of, like I said, two facility assessment submittals for the Seaford School District, as we will be submitting a certificate of necessity application, later in August. With our last approved CN in 2019, believe it or not, seems like it was just yesterday, but it was a while back. We addressed some exterior roofing and masonry renovations at Central, along with an updated security vestibule. That's something else to keep in mind. Anytime that we pass CNs moving forward, that's the security upgrades are attached to that, to the Senate bill as well. So, that's kind of compounded into the project scope there. However, the anticipated cost of priority one items, is estimated at $26,965,863.25 for Central Elementary alone. That kind of shows that 1.9 billion that we got back in 2019 didn't really put a dent in anything. It was just like throwing a little water. Right, exactly. So, some of the items are listed. I just want to go over, I'm not going to go over every assessment because we've been over them over and over again, but I just wanted to, so I was going through them and kind of saying, hey, what can I present to the board tonight? So it's kind of, I want to show how everything compounds off of basically one renovation. So, basically our fire systems in all of our schools are getting dated. So they're asking us to replace. We've replaced the main panels, but the cost of replacing the full system is out of our range with the money that we get annually. So basically, if we go in to sprinkle, 4 of our buildings, we have 2 sprinkled now, fully sprinkled. But if we go in to sprinkle the other 4 buildings, an example of that is we'll go in, we have to rip the ceilings down, tear the ceilings out, remove all the existing ceiling grid, all that stuff. When we do that, it kind of makes sense to go ahead and put new lighting in while we get the ceilings out. It makes sense to upgrade any insulation that we have at that point. And also something that's really tied into that is HVAC. Because now we got the ceilings out, now we have the room to go in and put that 4-pipe system in that we talked about, right? That's what we set ourselves up for in ESSER. So now you go in and you do that stuff. So that's kind of like when you see the cost of each one of these assessments, that's kind of where it compounds into that. You know what I mean? So it's just construction cost. Because once you start, it's like a domino effect. Once you start, it's just one thing after another. And that's part of the renovation of the school building. That's what kind of that is. So, and with all that being said, though, I do want to take a minute and basically mention the physical responsibility or how physically responsible I think the school district has been over the last 7 to 8 years. So basically, the Seaford School District completed a little over $7 million worth of HVAC work with available ESSER funding. So we went out, took that money that we were allocated there for ESSER and HVAC, the HVAC portion of it, and went out and addressed chillers that were outdated, boilers that were outdated, and stuff like that. So I just wanted to mention that as part of it. And then please note that the priority of our buildings is keeping the water out of our buildings. For guys like me in the state, that's what we're trying to do right now, right? We're just trying to keep the water out, because once water gets in, they're done. That's it, they're finished. So a couple of the things that we've done in the past, like I said, 7 years is silicone coating at blades, which bought us 20 years of roof warranty. So, our roof warranty was running out. We put a silicone coating on, it gives us another 20 years. Masonry repointing projects a couple of years ago we did at Fred Douglass, a high school and middle school, which is basically, like I told you, replacing the mortar joints inside the bricks, taking it out and putting new mortar in. That comes to like $2.2 million just for those 2 projects. So there again, the cost is offsetting the.
And that was from ESSER also?
That was from ESSER as well. Despite the work we have completed, the funding available for our Seaford Middle School is projected to cost for renovation $676 million is where we're sitting right now. And the anticipated cost for replacement in 2024 was projected at $72 million. So you see now that we fell behind,
Mm.
behind what it's costing basically to renovate the building, to build the building, to build a new one. So this shows despite the districts being good stewards and showing, fiscal responsibility with the available funding, we are still falling into a deficit with renovation versus replacement of the cost of our building.
And what is the reason, again, for the record, that the state decided that we should receive 1.9 million instead of what we requested?
I mean, if they don't have enough money, that the OMB and joint finance have said that, the money that was going towards, certificates of necessity, was needed to balance the budget in other places. I actually had a meeting today with a representative from DOE, and thank you for those numbers, Doug, because I used that very fact about being upside down in our middle school at this point, that the cost of repairs now exceeds the cost of replacing a building. So as superintendents, we've requested that DOE come up with a new way of looking at prioritizing CNs. But if you look at the budget even for this year, I don't know what that's going to be.
I think we're being told on our end, basically facility wise, like 2028, before they can even think about putting a CN for a building replacement or something.
And you know where I'm going next.
I think I'm going with you.
What's the year for Central Elementary that it was built?
Let me grab my folder real quick back again.
We've got
I'm gonna take it all.
today, Fred is 104 years old.
Yes.
That's what I
And
need.
the middle school is 98 years old.
Yep.
Those are the oldest two.
So here we go. We have original age at the high school was 1964. That's the original part of the building. 1928 at the middle school. 1922 with Fred. West Seaford was 1953. Central was 1959. Blades 1954, and then the 2002. You know, there was only the 6 classrooms there. Then 1999 for this building.
So we have buildings that are, two buildings that are, one is 100 years old, one is almost 100 years old. But there's no money.
Correct.
Dr. Savage, what point do we consider those, historic landmarks?
That's next, because I think Fred Douglass should, because it was one of the segregated schools. So have we looked into that part of money, that if that's a historic building, to get some money for that?
The only thing I would say about that, when you start getting into some of that money, they start having some say so what you can and cannot use that building for. So continuing like school there, they might consider, well, it's a historical piece. Might not be able to do that, and
Alright, and
To have school
to,
there? School
what they allow you to do it is for an occupancy, similar to if you get like an antique plate on a vehicle, you can only put so many miles on it in a year. The same thing, if you do some certain things along the lines of a historical,
So they could tell us that we can't use it for a school.
I'm not saying they can get that far, but you start, I mean, under the guise that, I don't know, Gene, you've dealt with some of that, with some things.
Any modifications to
Yes.
the building, any update, they can say that they can deny us updating the building because it's a historical building, doesn't match the criteria.
Can we find out what that is? I mean, this,
I'm just saying.
DOE's not gonna give us any money, so we gotta be something else.
So if they're saying it can't be in school,
But it's already school.
well, we know that.
We can certainly get more details. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Because I'm just saying, at this point, I mean, my mom went there. You know, and she was one of the first classes that did all 4 years at the high school. When it was good,
Right.
you know, so.
75 to 100 years old for most of our buildings.
Yeah, I mean, and the second oldest high school in town just got replaced.
It did. It did.
The second oldest one,
It did.
and every other one has been replaced.
Every one except ours. In the town. Every last one.
Which school was that? I think we all know.
You wanna hear it?
Oh, so it's that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Mr. Kenny.
Yes, ma'am. I'll need approval for each one of them. And-
Well,
Yes, and then, I'll also need approval for the plan, the maintenance plan, which I also attached, which is up here on the presentation. And that, I just wanna say kudos to my maintenance guys,
Yeah,
because what
yes.
Tom Worth mentioned, that we keep these buildings in good state. I
Yes,
walked today with our new, master carpenter, and took him on tours of our buildings, and as we were walking them, I don't notice it, you know what I mean? I know our buildings are in good state, don't get me wrong, and I believe that we're doing everything we can to keep them in that state. But I just, when you're in a house every day, you don't recognize those things that people do when they come in from outside. And as we were walking, he was like, it's amazing, the
It is.
age of these buildings and what they look like right now. And I said, well, you won't think so when your work orders start coming in. But yes, we do. The buildings, we do a good job, and my guys are the best out there. I don't know what I'd do without them. Good guys, and we keep, just adding to it. We had, Mike Short retired, which did a great job for us. But then we ended up with Jason Waldridge, closed his business down and came here to work. So we're very fortunate in what we're getting as far as replacements and stuff like that for the trade. So I just want to say kudos to those guys while I had a chance.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right.
we have some talented, people.
Yeah.
We really do have talented people. I know we all go to different schools at different times. It really does look nice. All right, so these are all of our action items. We're going to take it one by one. Central Elementary School Building Assessment Report. If there's no, questions from Mr. Henry, we need a motion to approve.
There was a, I move to approve Central Elementary Building Assessment Report is presented.
Mark Stratus, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. The next one is our Blaze Elementary School Building Assessment Report. If there's no question, for Mr. Henry, we just need a motion to approve.
Mark Stratus, move to approve the Blaze Elementary School Building Assessment Report is presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Here we have our Frederick Douglass, Elementary School, Building Assessment Report. And again, if there's no question for Mr. Henry, let's see a motion to approve.
Approved 7.12, Red Meadows Elementary School Board Assessment Report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Moving on to Seaford Elementary School, Building Assessment Report. If there's no questions for Mr. Henry, we should have a motion to approve.
Sarah Savage, I move to approve, 7.13 West Seaford Elementary Building Assessment Report is presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion carries. Then we have our Seaford Middle School Building Assessment Report. Again, if there's no questions for Mr. Henry, we just need a motion to approve.
Approved, 7.14, Saber Middle School Building Assessment.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Then we have our Seaford High School Building Assessment Report. Again, if there's no questions for Mr. Henry, we need a motion to approve.
Mark Stratus, move to approve the Senior High School Building Assessment Report is presented.
Sarah Savage, I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion also carries. Then we have our Seaford School District Repair Plan. Again, with the question from Mr. Henry, you want to roll two today?
Yes.
Just a motion to approve.
Sarah Savage, I move to approve the District Repair Plan, 7.16 is presented.
Mark Stratus, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Now we're gonna move along to our financial position report that we're gonna have in a minute.
Would you mind if we did the, monthly financials first? There's a
Oh,
method-
you can go however you would like, sir.
Let's do that first, and then, there's a method to what I'm doing here. So, as of month end, we're at 75.1 of the fiscal year. And we're at basically 66.2 expended, and with encumbered, we're sitting at roughly 71%. Overall, holding just fine. As always, if you look at where we are on salaries, Percentage wise versus the 75.1, you know where we are, because that's broken down to the 26 pays that we have, so you'll know that we're trending under that. Overall, we have expended just over 9.3 million, and with 691K encumbered, we are at just over 10 million, with 4 million remaining in our discretionary operating year expenses. We also, if we move over to tax collected, we are at we got 98,000 just over this past month. And just so you're aware, as we're looking at this, we have about, let me see here, we have roughly 86K that came in this past week. That will be reflected in the April bill, but one of the things I told y'all I would do is, because this is the first year where this was an increased amount, is keep you informed on exactly where we're tracking. And so if you take last month and this month, and you take in the second payment of our senior property tax and disabled veterans credit that we get, you will find that we're probably going to land pretty much spot on to what we had budgeted for this year. Any questions on that? Set asides, holding steady. We still, because the project, as you have seen outside, is still going on, and with some of the security work, we have a COPS report to do by the end of the month. So after we get the COPS report done, we will start to probably work on our recoding between now and hopefully by next month. We will have backed this out, but again, we thank you for helping us with that cash flow, because that has been a big piece that's really helped us. Any questions on set asides? Monthly revenue, we are at roughly 65.7 million, with no concerns at this time of what's left to come in. One of the things I've told you over the past few months was both state transportation and cafeteria are some of the largest areas where we will still get it, but that's one of those things where we get that throughout, and it's only a basis of what we spend typically. So with that being said, we are tracking, if you scroll down to the bottom, Kim, for them, we are sitting pretty close to where we had budgeted for, which is roughly just $500,000 off. And as I had pointed out, that the two biggest buckets is state transportation as well as cafeteria. Kim, before we switch over to the financial position report, would you go back to page one of this? One of the things that I want to highlight, and this is as we go back, is I do want you to look at local salaries at 10.5 million. Just keep note of that number, and we'll switch over to the financial position report. If there's no other questions in regards to the board report. All right, our financial position report is basically as follows. Again, this takes our local current expenses, our Division 2, the monies we've used, the monies we have on hand, to basically year over year be able to present to you where we are financially. You'll see that our number, if you go down to the summary page, Tim, when all said and done, is up from a number that was presented to you last year of 9.8. Now, what that means is we continue to trend upward in regards to our expenses being less than our revenue. That's a good thing. That means we're under budget. That's a position that we've been in for a good point of time, but also I need to highlight to you that 10.5 million, that's actually something that's on our operating expense report. But I don't really consider our salaries our operating expenses. They are because we have to count for them. That's the biggest asset we probably have in this district, though, is our employees and the people that provide our services to our kids. So what I need to make you aware of is that we are in the middle of contract negotiations. We are going to do our best to find a good even ground with our employees that are part of our contracted bargaining agreements, so that we can provide what we can, but at the same time, this will be the one area where the trajectory or where we are will probably change. At some point, we will be deficit spending, which means there'll be a time where this number starts trending downward. I'm just making you aware. It's not a negative, it's a realization. That's why when we talk about PEFC reform, we think about referendum reform, we think about the way we do our building CN process. All these things factor into things where we've got to keep money on hand. What if Doug comes up with an issue that where's that money gonna come from? It's also gonna come out of here.
Mhm.
We've got reserves, well, we have to keep reserves, we got set-asides because we don't have enough money in our operating to fund that annually, so we set it aside and we save for a rainy day. That's because of good fiscal management over time that has allowed that to happen. And a lot of those things were already in play before me. I'm not saying that's what I've done in my 2.5 years. I'm saying that's stuff that was already in place. That 2.9 million was already there. What I'm saying though is that this will change, and I just need y'all to be aware. And because as that trends downward, that takes us towards, and I think Mr. Benson had called it out a few board meetings ago, towards a referendum, which is not something that we foresee in the immediate future. Again, it's just a realization, because that's why I wanna call that out, not necessarily as just an expense on our operating report. I really wanna call it out as an asset, because it is something we need to invest into, but it's, again, a realization. So if there's not any questions, or if there is any questions.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, so these also are action items, and for the financial position report, I would need a motion to approve.
Fair Savage, I move that the financial position report is presented.
Motion for a second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. The next item is our financial reports. This also is an action item, and I will need a motion to approve.
Workshop, move to approve the financial reports as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. The next item on our agenda is our long range agenda, and that is up on the, board or the screen. I just want to highlight some of the things. We have our administrative professional day in a couple of days on the 22nd. We do have our third marking period award assembly that we have at Rose Elementary. Just be aware that, you know, as the marking period start ending and stuff, be aware of when your child's school is doing their award assemblies or their achievement assemblies. So just be on the lookout for that information. We have our grand march will be April 25th. That'll be at the high school at 6 p.m. And then they will be going to the Secret Fire Hall for the dance at 7:10. Please know that our School Bus Driver Appreciation Day is 4/28. I have said it before. I see them when I'm driving to work in the morning at 6 o'clock. Dara, you might see some when you're driving up there at 5:30 in the morning. And I tell you, it's a wonder how they always stop and get those kids in the pitch black of night with the trees, you know, in the rural area. I don't know how they do it. So they're amazing, because I couldn't park the bus, I couldn't back it in, and I would pass all the kids' stops. So I really do appreciate our bus drivers. There'll be an art show on the 29th. It is district-wide, and that will be at our Seaford Starbucks. So if you can, go and support. Principal's Day will be May 1st. School Lunch Hero Day is also May the 1st. Know that our Teacher Appreciation Week is May 4th through the 8th. Know that May 6th will be your National School Nurse Day. But actually May the 6th through the 12th is our National Nurses Week as well. It always overlaps with our teachers. I guess the givers, the servant leaders overlap together. Look into your kids' PTO meetings, see when your school has those. On the 8th of May, you can expect the kindergartners Mother's Day tea. That'll be at West Seaford. Support the Seaford McDonald's for Fred on the teacher night at 5:30 on the 13th. That's always fun to see the pictures on Facebook of our teachers or our social workers and counselors working the drive-through. Like I tell you, that is not easy listening to people through the drive-through. It's so muffled. So hopefully everyone gets their order correct that day. And then start looking into your field days. Understand that the information should be coming out. If you're not sure when it is, please reach out to your child's school. Then on the 18th, we have National Speech Language Pathology Day. Please, reach out to them, thank them. They work with our special needs populations and with our kiddos that are expecting that have some form of speech impediment or even cognitive issues. They do it all. And then also on the 18th, our Behavioral Health Professional of the Year banquet will, be taking place in Dover. And then on the 19th, we will be back here at 6 p.m.
That is a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday. So just to make that a mental note. And if we did not, mention something from the school and we had it on the list, just know that put it on your, social media site. And if you didn't mention it and it's not on our list, well, put it on your social media site. All right, so now we would need, a motion to go out of public session into executive session for personnel matters, legal updates, and student matters.
Orchestra, move to the executive session.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? That motion carries, and it is 6:50 p.m.